Hope that you can see the screen. Same session. I will continue. That day we discussed about the legal framework for government finance. We discuss constitutions and finance act. I think we stop at we discussed 13 amendments also. Yes, we discussed the 3 stages of parliament function. Parliament functions basically. Here we have first one is allocation of funds for a particular ministry shall be taking into consideration the expected recurrent expenses and capital investment in the ensuing year. Then the proper evaluation. Even the allocation of recurrent expenses shall be made after proper evaluation on the economy. Then the annual budget has to be passed by Parliament. Government agencies can spend money only after the constitutional procedure is adhered. Basically, Parliament is there to approve the budget. There are certain steps. We will be discussing all those steps later on when we discuss the budget cycle. But basic functions of the Parliament with regard to the financial management would be consider the funding requirements for different ministries with regard to the recurrent and the capital expenditure or the capital investment. Then of course you need to discuss it. The proper evaluation means you have to discuss it. Then you need to approve by the Parliament. Once the Parliament approved the particular expenses or the budget, Parliament can really, ministers or the relevant agencies, relevant departments can really spend. I think it's very clear now. The last third bullet number 3. Once the budget is approved, the Minister of Finance sanctions withdrawal under the authority of a warrant under his hand. So thereby, generally, authority of a warrant is coming. That means the disbursement of funds really under the authority of Ministry of Finance. I think you can remember all these funds are taking out from the consolidated fund, but there are 2 exceptions to this particular authorization process. One is if the president dissolve the Parliament, president has the power of getting expenses for the election from the consolidated funds without without making presentation to the Parliament. Item number second exception is president has the capacity of taking expenses when he dissolve the Parliament up to the 3-month period starting from the new Parliament. When the government dissolved, there will be election, then there will be a new government. New government will really summon the Parliament from that day up to 3 months. So you can president can spend money out of this consolidated. Those are 2 exceptions. In addition to that, I think you can remember the contingency fund also. When there is a disaster, president has the power of taking money uh, out from the contingency fund, not from the consolidated funds. If there is a contingency fund, he or she can take money out of this contingency. Once parliament really is there, he or she has to get the approval from the parliament. Then that money again he will be refunding to the contingency fund. Contingency fund, you can take money out of from the contingency fund when there is a, say earthquake, flood, disaster, but without approval. But later on you can put it to the parliament and get the approval, and you can take that money out of consolidate and put into the contingency fund. That's how contingency fund will continue. I think, of course, that I discussed. Then I just want to discuss with you Finance Act number 38, section 2. Money is in the compulsory revenue fund to the loan to government. Section 2, certain expenses to be met out of the compulsory saving fund. So when you take the Finance Act, there are different sections which I want to highlight here. Just look at this. I think you can remember we are discussing the regulatory matters with regard to the public finance. Basically, we discuss the constitutions, section 148, 49, 50, 51, 52. Now here we are discussing the Finance Act. When you look at the Finance Act, this part, the first section 2 and this one, money in the compulsory saving to be loaned to the government. If there are savings in here, so they can really give it to the government. Certain expenses to be made out of the compulsory saving fund. So when you read this, the act really in detail, there is a particular act. I have taken only the section. You will see public cooperation, cooperation, cooperation. So thereby, basically what I want to communicate to you is that Finance Act number 38 of 1971 is applicable for public corporations, authorities and universities, etc. So all these sections are related to financial matters, financial obligations, preparation of budgets of public corporation, revenue and determination of net surplus and net deficit, that is how to calculate the income statement, appropriation of net surplus revenue of public corporation. Again, how we are going to spend this surplus. When you take one example, if there is a profit in the public corporation, how we are going to use this profit? For example, you can use the profit to eliminate previous losses. You can't declare dividends like a private company. The section 11 is, of course, investment money of a public corporation. Investment, how we are going to, when there are surplus money in the public corporations, how you can invest those surplus money. Accounts of a public corporations, really how to prepare and present annual reports, rendering of accounts and audit, internal audit and external audit, accounts of reports to be laid down before House of Representatives, Parliament and the Pope, a recommendation of Public Accounts Committee, that is Public Accounts Committee, the borrowings powers of public corporation, subsidy from the government. This is reductions of capital of a public. That means if you try to reduce the really the what do you call the capital, if you want to reduce the size of the corporation, so this section will help you to reduce the capital. Then of course subsidies, borrowing powers of the public corporation, subsidies, reductions of capital corporation, dissolution of a public corporation. If a public corporation dissolve, what are the matters you have to consider? Liquidator's power. Liquidator has to be appointed when dissolve the public corporation. So at that time, what are the powers of liquidations? Then clause of liquidations. So when you are going to make settle the obligation, what are the priorities? First priority is the obligation, liquidation expenses, then the outside liabilities, then the government money. That's how this. So by taking this section 7, 8, 9, 10, what I want to just communicate to you is that Finance Act number 38 of 1971 really applicable for finance public corporations. Now, one more point to be highlighted. You will see here recommendation of Public Accounts Committee. This is really COPA, not the Pope. You have to remember when this particular act really developed in 1970s. At that time, we didn't have the COPE. You have to get this point very clearly. Now, basically, there are two oversight committees with regard to the public sector. One is COPE, Committee on Public Enterprises. Other one is Committee on Public Accounts or Public Accounts Committee. Now, after this, in 1977, of course, Parliament recognized that Public Account Committee is not having the capacity to oversee, to investigate all the government departments and corporations. Thereby, there was a new proposal to establish a separate committee on public with regard to the public corporation, COPE, Committee on Public Account, Public Enterprises. So thereby, with this open economic policies and the matters, expansion of the public sector, the Parliament decided to have two types of committees. One is Public Account Committee, other one is Public Committee on Public Enterprises. The Committee on Public Enterprises is responsible for corporations. But at that time, since when this particular act was developed, at that time we didn't have the Committee on Public Enterprises. So thereby in the act even, you say section number 15, you get the Public Accounts Committee. At that time, of course, all the public institutions look after by the Public Accounts Committee. After 1977 only, COPE is really coming. I think you can remember, you can understand why Public Account Committee is there. Just by issuing a particular circular, I think this has been changed, but this is the original of Finance Act. So thereby, Public Account Committees, they are in the Act. But remember, now this is not really applicable. Instead of that, what is coming? COPE is coming. Now the COPE is responsible for what you call public corporations. Is it clear? Oh, okay. Section 23, of course, I am not going to discuss all the sections. Section 23, financial year of government and every public institution shall be the period of 12 months commencing on the first year of January and each year. The section number 23 really define a financial year of a public sector. So thereby it is only normally starting from January to December is the financial year. Okay, that's all. Then we will come to the fiscal management, really responsibility act number 3 of 2003, to enhancing the effectiveness and scrutiny of public funds with much more transparent and accountable manner. So here the fiscal objective of fiscal management act is to enhance the effectiveness of and scrutiny of public funds. Thereby it enhances the transparency and the accountability, and reduction of government debt to prudence level and the budget deficit had been main targets among other things. This is of course to manage expenses and debt. When you manage the expenses, budget deficit will reduce, and when you use prudent philosophy to obtain debt, again really it's good for the fiscal aspect of the country, stability, inflation, etc. It also imposes the responsibility upon the treasury to table mid-year fiscal position reports in parliament for the evaluation of the members and the general public as well. So based on this fiscal management act, Ministry of Finance or the Treasury is responsible of preparing mid-year fiscal position. That means now normally public sector people produce only financial reports at the end of the financial year. But with this act, public sector has to really provide what do you call interim financial statement. So we don't label it as interim, but it is here we label it as mid-year fiscal position report. Even if you go to the website of Ministry of Finance, you can look at the mid-year 2020 mid-year fiscal position report. So you can understand how COVID-19 really made an impact on economy of Sri Lanka. If you refer to this mid-year financial position, I recommend you to log into the Ministry of Finance and just go to the Treasury and find out the mid-year financial position reports and read it. It's available now, mid-year financial position. So one fundamental advantage of this fiscal management act is to influencing government, influencing treasury to make interim financial reports. The meaning of interim, technical word, there's a particular standard, interim financial reporting. So likewise, based on this fiscal management act, government is really responsible for producing mid-year financial reports, and it is not only for parliament but also general public as well. That's why they are publishing it on the website. Next one, it will ease to make an assessment about any progress or shortfall of the government. So thereby, with this publication, it is very easy to understand where the country is. Otherwise, we have to wait 1 year just to look at the performance of the public sector in terms of financial this thing. So with that, I will finish the meaning, the introduction to the Fiscal Management Act. This is available in the web. Of course, you can take it and you can read it. Then I am coming to today's what I plan according to our lecture schedule: financial regulations of the government of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. Now here we talk about financial regulations. Now again, I am going to back to this one. This is the Financial Act of number 38, 1971, which is applicable for public corporation. You know meaning of public corporations. State-owned enterprises, all water board, electricity board, you know, not inland revenue really, all other corporations, authorities, harbor, universities, all are coming under the public corporation. So for them, 1978 Finance Act is applicable. That is the regulatory matter. And with regard to the government, other departments, you know, ministries, departments, statutory bodies, all state employees, financial regulation is applicable. Financial regulation is applicable. But remember, it doesn't say that this is not applicable for public corporations. When and where it is, you know, linked to the public consolidated funds, I think financial regulation is applicable. Now, if you go to certain this one, can you see this document? Oh, sorry. This one. I had a document with regard to the, you know, not again this one. Don't have it now. I think. You see. Wait, I'm having. No, I don't think I have it. Okay, I couldn't find it. We'll see. Okay. What I in certain cases, what I want to communicate here is this is applicable for financial regulations of government's department. But in certain cases, this is applicable for public corporations, statutory bodies even. But with regard to this Finance Act 1971, as I told you, this is applicable for public corporation. But what I want to communicate to you is public corporation may have developed their own financial management manuals, which is lined with the 1971 Act plus the latest, you know, contemporary way of managing public corporations. So thereby what they do is they will follow the manual which is developed by this particular comprehensive manual developed by the particular public corporations. But that particular manual, public financial management manual, has been prepared in line with the Finance Act. So thereby they may have their own way of managing financial management in public corporations, right? So financial regulation is basically applicable for ministries and departments. In the case of government corporation too, that's why I told you in certain cases it may be applicable for government corporation. This financial regulation will apply unless they have duly adopted by their own comprehensive financial rules and procedures. That's what I'm telling. So if they don't have a comprehensive financial rules and procedures which are inherent to their organization, they may use financial regulations. Then in the case of divisional secretariats, the regulation will apply addition to the guideline already issued by the General Treasurer. With regard to the divisional secretariats, you know, General Treasury may have issued guidelines, additional guidelines. If that is the case, those divisional secretariats should use or should follow the guideline issued by the General Treasury. Otherwise, the financial regulation will, however, override the guidelines if there is any discrepancy. If there is a gap, if there is a conflict, more powerful, what is powerful is the financial regulations. They can use their own comprehensive financial rules and regulations, procedures, but override by the financial regulations. Then, of course, the financial regulations of the government of Sri Lanka is a subject that has been assigned to Ministry of Finance. You have to understand very clearly, President has given the power to the Ministry of Finance with regard to the financial regulations of governments. That is given under the, article means constitutions, 44 section 1. So I think you can remember we discussed the constitutions. Constitution is really what do you call conceptual framework of financial reporting. You can remember the conceptual framework. Constitution is similar to the conceptual framework. So thereby constitutions will tell us basic principles, basic foundations with regard to the financial regulation, public finance, or managing the public finance, basic principles. Like conceptual framework describing basic fundamental principles, rules for preparation of financial statements. So based on these constitutions, we have developed certain regulations. For example, Finance Act, Finance Fiscal Management Act. Now we are talking about financial regulation. Those are really those particular regulations prepared based on constitutions. What I want to communicate to you is the third bullet, the section 44(1) of the constitutions giving power to the president, really delegating financial matters to the Ministry of Finance. Is it clear? So thereby ministry hand the තියෙන්නේ ඇත්තටම මුදල් ඇමතිගේ කියලා කතාවක් තියෙන්නේ. ඒක තමයි මේ කියන්නේ. He has the he is the distributor of money among different departments once the approval is given by the Parliament. So this is really based on Section 4(1) of the Constitutions. Okay. Then when you take Ministry of Finance, you know, the Ministry of Finance, we need to understand the what is Ministry of Finance. The Secretary to the Finance is the Secretary to the Treasurer. The Deputy Secretary to the Treasurer is the head of the Treasury. So I think you can understand the Secretary to the Finance is the Secretary to the Treasurer. The Deputy Secretary of the Treasurer is the head of the Treasury. But Treasury කියනකේ ලොක්කා Deputy Secretary. ඇත්තටම Secretary Finance Ministry එක Secretary වෙනවා. Treasury එක Secretary වෙනවා. When you take Ministry of Finance, there are 6 departments. මේ හැම department එකකම there is a Director General. Director General. So there is a department called Department of National Budget. Of course, they are responsible for preparation of budgets. Then there is a Department of Fiscal and Economic Affairs, the policy matters, fiscal policies and economic related policies. There is a Director General. Then Department of Public Finance, all financing matters, income expenses matters, estimates. Then Department of Public Enterprise, who will look after the SOEs, state-owned enterprises, public corporations, Department of Public Enterprises. Then Department of State Accounts, who is responsible of preparation of financial statement for the government departments. Then the Department of External Resources, that is foreign currency, project proposals, etc. External resources. Right? Department of External Resources. All departments are headed by Director General. But earlier, about 10-5 years ago, I think we had the division, National Budget Division, likewise, but recent restructure, just because of recent structure, we get this kind of, departments. Then we will discuss the financial regulations. Of course, financial regulations. When you look at the financial regulations, basically there are 5 chapters in the financial regulations. I have uploaded the financial regulation text. It is your responsibility to just go through the material which I have uploaded to the really LMS. So it has 5 chapters, but I don't have time to discuss all these chapters in detail. Estimates of expenditure and revenue is the first chapter. Authorities for expenditure and refunds, write-off, etc. is the second chapter. The third chapter is financial management and accountability, receipts and the payments. So basically, financial regulations covers these areas. When you look at estimates of expenditure and revenue, there are 6 sections. The consolidated funds and planning and programming of expenditure, form of presentation, annual estimates and expenditure, new proposals, preparation and submissions of passing estimates of expenditure, variation to estimates expenditure and estimates revenue. Basically, these sections provide guidelines for public sector to prepare, to estimate expenditure and revenue for the next year. Otherwise, you can't prepare the budget. So this is like a foundation for preparation of budget. Without this section, estimates of expenditure and revenue with regard to the financial regulation, it is difficult for you to, for us to prepare the budget. So thereby there are section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Under sections, you get the financial regulation number. Okay. Then of course, authorities for expenditure, refunds and write-off, etc. Here, of course, you get warrant and impress authority, authorities for control expenditure and incurring commitment liabilities, power of engaged casual employees, that is, how to recruit temporary employees, etc. Power to engage, power to recruit contract basis employment, losses and waivers and miscellaneous items. This is little bit out of our scope. We are not, this is if you are discussing the public management, of course this section is okay, but we are not covering this part, comprehensively. Then of course chapter 3, financial management and accountability. This sections of course covers all the aspect of financial management and accountability. This sections covers who is responsible for finance matters. When you take, especially with regard to the human resources and their duties, this section covers the role and responsibilities of, human being, the people. With regard to this sections, I will be having a separate discussion with you because this is much more important for us. The financial management and accountability chapter, they talk about different positions. They talk about Ministry of Minister, Finance Minister, and they talk about Chief Accounting Officer. They talk about Accounting Officer. They talk about Revenue Officer, and they talk about Treasurer. 5 types of human resources they are discussing, and their responsibility and scope really will be discussed in this financial management and accountability section. Then of course receipts, receipt of money, collection sections and accepting. When you get money, how to get money, and how to put a receipts and how to deposits with regard when you collect money. For example, postal department collect money. For example, fines, when traffic really issue a fine report, we have to pay the fine to the post office. So there is a collection. So such collections, how you are going to bank deposits, what kind of procedure you adopt. Likewise, and accepting, how you prove that a particular amount of money being received, what kind of control mechanism applicable. So those kind of stuffs will be discussed here. Basically, controls which are related to receipts. You know the meaning of receipts. Controls which are related to receipts will be discussed here in this section. Then the payment section also, payment also much more important. Can you remember the VAT refund story? VAT refund fraud, payment. When you look at the payment, there are certain controls. Earlier chapter, of course, discuss controls which are related to receipts. This section covers controls which are related to payments. So thereby responsibility and authority. Who has the responsibility of making a payment? Who has the responsibility of making who has the authority of approving a particular payment? Then the preparation of vouchers. When you prepare the vouchers, what are the steps to be followed? Certifications. Who certify the payment? Who certify the payment? I think you can remember normally when you make a payment through a check, when you make a payment through a check is signed by two parties normally, or two directors, or one is accountant, other one is director. When you sign a check, when you put a signature on a check, the first signature certify the payment. You have to understand that. Certification means you confirm that I have checked all the required documents and the payment is accurate, payment is reliable, and the particular expense being incurred. There are enough, there are adequate evidences. That's the meaning of certification. So here section 3 discuss how to certify the payment voucher. Then the payment vouchers, the format and the content of payment vouchers, and relevant documents to be attached to the payment vouchers, etc. Then the procedures where the treasury or a Kacheri act as office of payments of other department. When there are certain procedures to follow, separate acts, of course this section will help you to give guidance. Then unpaid wages section, when wages are not paid, what you will do. Normally we have to have a separate account for unpaid wages, and the unpaid wages should be deposited in the bank immediately. Unpaid wages, really, you can remember unpaid wages, how you get the unpaid wages. I don't think nowadays, since we are making the payment electronically, since we are depositing the salaries to the respective employees account directly, I don't think that you will get unpaid wages now. But earlier in the history, our payment, our salaries, we took salaries from the cashier, counter. We go to the cashier and we withdraw the salary. Then the cashier in the counter will count our salary, put into the envelope, and we will get the envelope. Then once we receive the envelope, we also calculate the wages. That's how we took the wages about 10 years back or 20 years back. It was not really computerized. It is not directly banked. We took physically salaries. Especially these unpaid wages are important when salaries are paid physically, cash, coins and cash, the notes. But nowadays, I don't think this section is much more important with regard to the unpaid wages. But even in such cases, if there are unpaid wages, you know that, for example, when you go to the state accounts, plantations, you know that laborers payment, if unpaid wages are there, the control is immediately next day morning you have to deposit the unpaid wages, and that has to be recognized in a separate account, right? Then the section 7, transfer payments and interdepartment transactions, intercompany transaction, intertransfers, the rules and regulation related to transfer payments and interdepartment transactions, interdivisions, intersections, interbranch, etc. So thereby, what I want to communicate to you is that this section, of course, talk about payments. Now, what I want to summarize, financial regulations, of course, has 5 chapters. Estimates of expenditure and revenue. This one, authority for expenditure, financial management and accountability, receipts and payments. Okay, I have discussed in briefly what are those. I just want to discuss a little bit about the consolidated funds and planning and program expenditure. Now, how shall I tell you? This is the story. Now when you take the estimates, expenditure and revenue, Under that, you can remember we had 6 sections. What I will do here is I will take the section 1, the consolidated fund and planning and programming of expenditure, and discuss a little bit more, and form a presentation little bit more, new proposal little bit more, preparation submission little bit more, variation of estimate expenditure little bit more, and estimates of revenue little bit more. What I am trying to say you is that chapter 1 I will be discussed with special reference to the FR, financial regulation number. FR means financial regulation 1. 1 means section, maybe in the act number 1. That's number 1. It talks about the financial year. Even Finance Act 1971 talks about financial year. Here the financial year, as usual, it is from January to December. January to December, financial year. Financial regulation number 2 is really provision in the constitutions. Financial regulation number 2 is giving references or the connection to the constitutions. I think you can remember we discussed sections or articles of the constitutions which are related to public finance. I think you can remember 148, 149, 150, 51, 52. So those 5 sections we discussed. I think you can remember 148 says that Parliament is responsible for public finance. 149 talk about the consolidated funds. Then 149, 150, 51, 52. Likewise, it talks about different scenarios. Then planning of expenditure. Financial regulation number 3 is planning of expenditure. Meaning is that you know that if not approved in the Parliament, you don't make any expenses. That has to be really approved by the Parliament. So thereby, all the departments, all the ministries, and other government institutions should perfectly plan their expenditure. Should estimate their expenditure. Expenditure has 2 parts basically. One is recurrent, other one is capital. So both expenditure has to be really planned very clearly, estimates. Other one is when you take recurrent expenditure, you know what are the example of recurrent expenditure. But when you take capital expenditure, it can be divided into 2 parts. One is, ongoing projects. Other one is new projects. Ongoing projects means projects which are taking more than 1 financial year, longer term. New projects may be really longer term project, large project, small projects, on new projects. For example, you know that you can consider the projects. Umawaya is a kind of project which is not a small project, which is not a sectoral, which is not a large project. It is a sectoral project. We call it sectoral. There are 3 types of projects in the government as per the financial regulations. One is sectoral project. Sectoral projects means really it has a, you know, a macro impact. And to implement this kind of projects, different department, different ministries really join hand, get together, and their lifetime is more than 5 years. Lifetime is not 1 year, not 2 years. It extends to many years, sectoral projects. Then the large project, of course, the expenditure is more than 10 million and maintenance cost is more than 500,000. Small project means which is less than 10 million, maintenance should be less than 500. එතන 10 million වලින් තමයි දෙකක් තියෙන්නේ. 10 million above, 500,000 above. 10 million below, 500,000 below. That is how you define the large and the small project. So anyway, what I want to communicate to you is that Financial Regulation 3 talks about how to plan, how to estimate expenditure, both capital and recurrent, both ongoing project expenditure and the new projects. And when you take this, what do you call, yeah, we were here, no? Yes. When you take this, the programming of expenditure, you have to remember, once you program, once you estimate, you have to adhere to that expenditure. That is a kind of financial control. අපි වෙන් කර ප්‍රමාණය විතරයි spend කරන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට chief accounting officers, revenue officers, treasurers, all really should comply, should limit their expenses to the what is being approved, what is being programmed. They can't spend more than that. That is the rule. That is the rule. Okay. Then with regard to this section 2, I just want to discuss a little bit about section 2. You know, section 2 is this, let's remember now, little bit complicated. Section 2 is estimates of expenditure and revenues. Section 2. Form of presentation, annual estimates and expenditure. I think you can remember, you know, the preparation and presentation of financial statement. There's a particular format. There's a way of presenting. Certain expenses, certain items are you put on the page of the income statement. Certain items you are putting on the page of the balance sheet. There is an order. Likewise, when you present annual estimates of expenditure, so that guidelines is given under this section. So there are here, I have noted 7, Financial Regulation 6 talks about publication. Financial Regulation 7 talk about general estimates. 8 talk about unit and budgetary classification. 9 order of presentation in general estimates. 10 personal emoluments. 11 estimations of other recurrent expenditure, and FR 12 estimation of capital expenditure, and 17 state corporations, which are really what are the applicable rule with regard to the presentation of state corporations. Is it clear? That is how they have to present the annual estimates of expenditure. So from all the department you get estimates. So there should be a way of presenting. Estimates of revenue and expenditure government for the financial year shall include estimates of revenue, general estimates of expenditure, estimate related to advance account, salaries, and etc. So those are, then general estimates coming here. So that is about section 2. Likewise, there are chapters, there are sections, regulation, rules, but I don't think that what do you call, you all can really we can really discuss the whole financial regulation book, 5 chapters. But I just want to highlight you, these are the chapters. There are certain regulations, there are certain rules with regard to the specific event and the items. So when you manage the public finance, we have to follow these guidelines. And when you take financial management and accountability, I think that we have to discuss in details. What I will do is next week we will have rules and regulations again. Act number again. We will discuss the chief accounting officer, accounting officer, revenue officer, who are they, their responsibility little bit. Then we will finish it off the financial regulations. But I have uploaded the particular rules and regulation total book chapter. You just read it to get an idea what it is. Okay, any question? Today we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, no? 7, 6. You have any question? Right. If you don't have any question, then we will wind up the session today. Okay. Thank you.